Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington normal. It's a Tuesday, 6:05 a.m. Might be a little bit warmer today. I woke up this morning, we took the dog out. I was like, whoa, it's kind of warm. It's 40 something degrees. It's warmer than it has been. So maybe it's going to be a little warm this morning or this afternoon. All right. So I want to get to Cody Hendricks, Jenna Kearns violating city code? Question mark? Yikes. This close to the election, I don't know if you want to be called out for something like that. We're going to get to that here in just a couple of minutes. In 2023 and in 2022, this is an organization, Krystle Able. She's a current McLean County board member. She's running for Normal Township. And I know, I've told you guys several times, I don't understand why nobody's called her out on that, why nobody is making a bigger fuss about that. I feel like I'm like crazy for thinking that a McLean County board member should not also serve as the Normal Township supervisor. From what I understand, she plans, if she were to be elected, holding both positions. And do you see where that becomes a problem? Look at what's going on in the village of Dalton. She calls herself super mayor. That's Tiffany Henyard, and she's under investigation by the FBI. Anytime you have somebody run or somebody, and there's Thaddeus Jones. He's also under investigation for things. He serves as a state representative and also the Calumet City mayor. So there's anytime and it's always Democrats. It's never Republicans that I've ever seen. Now, Catherine Metzger, yes, she served it as well, but she's no longer right on the county board. I never really see Republicans doing this as much. When Republicans do it, I will call it out, where they're serving in multifaceted government, like where they're doing multiple jobs in government, municipal jobs in government, and that's not good. We want diversity, right? So we don't want the same leader. Like, you see where this is a problem, where you start to get somebody serving as mayor, somebody also serving as McLean County board member, somebody serving as the township supervisor. That becomes a tyranny. That means you're living in a dictatorship. Okay, if you only have one leader serving in all roles of government. Okay, so we definitely want diversity. I thought this was interesting in 2022, 2023. The organization Krystle Able is the executive director of. This organization spent more in both of these years, in 2022 and in 2023, than they generated in revenue. And that just speaks to fiscal responsibility, right? Obviously, if you're spending more than nobody's making money. So it's definitely not a profitable organization. They're definitely not making any kind of money. They're in the hole. So I don't know what that tells you about Krystle Able's financial responsibility here. If she's the some executive director, right, where you're in the hole. I know people are going to be like, well, it's a nonprofit. It's not supposed to be for profit and blah, blah, blah. I get that, but like, they're in the hole by a whole lot and they're spending a whole lot more than they're generating here. So yeah. I'm going to get to that, but I also want to get to Tampon Tim Walz. Tampon Tim Walz. He's saying that the shutting down of the DOE is similar to, or is going to be essentially segregating schools. We're going to go down this path of segregating schools if we don't have the Department of Education. All of that and more ahead on Conservative Cat. Go ahead, find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Let's get into it, shall we? I do want to start here. The candidates, this is Chapter 2, Section 13. Found this on BLN News, the city code. Just straight up out of the city code. Candidates for elected office, City of Bloomington, mayor and city council member. Okay, so elected offices for the city of Bloomington. So that would be Cody Hendricks, right? He's a candidate for an elective office, may not hold themselves out to be candidates or nominated or endorsed by political parties. Okay, I don't know how much clearer it gets than that. Okay, so I'm going to share with you on the stream. You guys are welcome to go find it. This is Cody Hendricks' mailer. So I just read for you straight up verbatim out of the city code, chapter 2, section 13E. Okay, go look it up if you want the City of Bloomington ordinances. All right. This is city code. This is also city code chapter 1, section 6. If any action, and I'm summarizing here and paraphrasing a little bit, but if any action is prohibited, unlawful, or an offense under this code or future ordinances, or where no specific penalty is mentioned. So under this section that I just told you in the city code, section or chapter 2, section 13E, where it says candidates, you can't be endorsed by political parties. If you're running for mayor or city council, okay, that's what that says. It doesn't lay out a specific penalty if that code is violated. Now, here's what the code says. It says the violation will result in a fine. If there is no specific penalty mentioned, the violation will result in a fine of $50 to $500. Each day the violation continues to count as a separate offense. Okay, so if you don't remedy it after your fine, $50 to $500, then you're going to have to keep paying the fine. Okay, so the violation continues to count each day as a separate offense. Okay, so this is the proof. If you guys want to check it out on YouTube, I'll describe what I'm looking at here. What proof do you have, Kat, that Cody Hendricks violated city code? Well, I don't know. This is pretty damning. I'm no lawyer, but it says pretty clearly in the city code that you cannot be endorsed by political parties. And right here it says Cody is the candidate endorsed by McLean County Democrats Victory Fund, Bloomington Normal Trades and Labor Assembly, and Democrat officials like State Representative Sharon Chung. Now, you can, I think, be endorsed by elected officials, okay? But right here on the back of the mailer, it says Democrats of McLean County. So this is the local political party. I don't know. It looks pretty clear to me. I don't know if the violation could be more blatant. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer. And here's the thing. Even if this is right in violation of the code, violators frequently do this because they know they can get away with it, because nobody's ever been held accountable under these laws or under these ordinances. And really, I'm at a point where I don't think laws really matter at all. So, for example, I've talked about this several times. There have been zero consequences for people who engage in electioneering with taxpayer infrastructure and taxpayer funds. It happened with the Yes for Unit 5 referendum. It's going on with the sales tax referendum. It's under investigation currently by the McLean County Sheriff's Office, but nobody's, for example, Lizzie Johnson, right? The current chair. She was the then vice chair, where she allegedly was going around soliciting donations from people on company or on government time in the government building, asking people for donations, soliciting donations to try to eliminate the auditor, soliciting donations for a PAC that was established to eliminate the auditor. I'm at a point right now where violators are just going to continue to do what they want until they're held accountable. Okay, because it's kind of like this thing where when you don't enforce laws and when you don't hold people accountable, people are just going to do whatever they want. So McLean County Chamber of Commerce, they endorsed Jenna Kearns. Didn't know that. That's interesting. I wonder if they'd be very happy to find out that Jenna Kearns is kind of doing the same thing as Cody. Not as blatant, I'm going to be honest there. Jenna Kearns, this violation to the city code, like I said, I read verbatim the codes, chapter 2, section E. I'll throw it into the comments section if you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, and you can read it for yourself. Candidates for elected office, City of Bloomington, mayor and city council members may not run or hold themselves out to be candidates of or nominated or endorsed by political parties. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. Jenna Kearns kind of doing the same thing. I would say not as blatant. Okay, I'm going to give her that. Not as blatant. If elected officials and those who want to be elected violate laws, okay, or violate ordinances, codes, why should anyone else have to obey them? Okay, if these leaders at the top, it's kind of like my mom, when I was a kid, eating cookies, late at night. And she told me that I couldn't eat cookies late at night. When I was a kid, what? You expect me to follow that law? So guess what I did? I went right into the drawer and grabbed the Oreos and snuck them into my room and ate them at nighttime. Okay, because I saw her doing it. So if your elected officials or candidates violate laws, why should anybody else have to follow the law? It doesn't seem fair, So Jenna Kearns, if you're not a Democrat, and this is all courtesy BLN News. I found the mailers, the city code there. You guys can go check it out. That's my source. I looked it up, just to double check the chapter 2, section 13. If that was current code, it is. Candidates for elected office of the city of Bloomington, mayor or council member, they can't hold themselves out to be candidates nominated or endorsed by political parties. So this is interesting. What are you going to do about Hendricks? What are you going to do about Kearns? It's nonpartisan doesn't matter to these individuals. Okay. If you're not a Democrat or if you're not a member of the union, labor union, Jenna Kearns, Cody Hendricks won't be working for you. That's what I get from these mailers when I read them, because obviously nonpartisan, that code's there for a reason. Okay. Nonpartisan is something that should be embraced as a quality of candidate or they should embrace these nonpartisan qualities of the city council and of the mayor, but they don't. And if you don't like the law, change it. All right. What gets me is Jenna Kearns is an incumbent. Cody Hendricks is an incumbent. Why don't they just change the law? They probably will after this. The old adage, break a law, change a law, right? So they probably will after they've been called out on this. But I don't understand why they just don't change it. And if you're sending these mailers, then I begin to question: Are you cheating? Are you cheating? And are you cheating to win? Is that what works in Bloomington now? Because if you are saying you're endorsed by Democrats and you're sending that to Democrat voters, those mailers, it's definitely unethical. In possibly a violation of this code, like I said. So what are they going to do? They're not going to hold them accountable. Will the city manager, Jeff Jurgens, a lawyer, allow the abuse of the city code to go unchallenged? I don't know. Jenna Kearns is a lawyer, so she should know better. And like I said, it's not as blatant with her. Her mailer says Jenna Kearns is the only candidate for Ward 1 who supports Democrats and labor unions. Now, she says that she's endorsed by Democratic McLean County board members. So it's not as blatant there as it was with, Cody Hendricks. He straight up said, I'm endorsed by the McLean County Democrats. And then he's got their logo right there on the back of his mailer. So I'd say it's a little bit more blatant with Cody Hendricks. Jenna Kearns, an argument could be made. We know that it probably won't be made by the city manager, Jeff Jurgens. This abuse is just going to go unchallenged. That's how this is. And I'm at a point where the laws don't even really matter. So this is really interesting. I found this on BLN News. They talk about WGLT, and then there's some excerpts from this article that I wanted to share with you. And this is Jenna Kearns. Both candidates said they embrace the nonpartisan qualities of the city council. Based on group Zimmerman embraces, Kearns said that she's not sure that Zimmerman, now this is Ben Zimmerman, who's running in Ward 1 against Jenna Kearns. Zimmerman, she said she's not sure Zimmerman believes that, they should embrace the nonpartisan qualities of city council, and she doesn't think Zimmerman, based on the groups he likes, okay? She said, Zimmerman, I'm not sure he believes that. This isn't according to WGOT. Zimmerman noted back then, right, a few weeks ago, saying Kearns, her campaign literature is partisan. She's promoting herself for Democrats and labor unions. Okay, so she is campaigning as a partisan individual. So how can she, with a straight face, say that Ben Zimmerman is not a nonpartisan, or not embracing the nonpartisan qualities of the city council. What? Because she's out there sending the mailers like this, where she supports Democrats and labor unions. Look, you had a chance to hold her accountable. NPR, government radio, you didn't. Okay, there's very little research. You just look it up. Chapter 2, Section 13E, candidates for elected office. You can't be endorsed by political parties. So, yeah, she doesn't believe, judging by her mailers, right? I would say that Jenna Kearns is probably the one who doesn't believe in a nonpartisan council. But yet she accused Ben Zimmerman of not believing in a nonpartisan council, which is just so wild to me. I'm going to be honest with you. Never have I seen Ben Zimmerman's mailers look like Republican mailers. They don't look like Republican mailers. He doesn't say endorsed by, like Cody Hendricks did, the McLean County GOP. He doesn't say that in his mailers. So, boy, I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. A couple more local things. I want to get to Krystle Able's organization. And this is really interesting. She's the executive director of it for the 2022 and 2023. They saw no revenue really generated. There was a small amount of revenue generated, but they spended more than they generated. Okay. And I don't know about you, but in my world, that's called fiscal irresponsibility. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Corruption in Illinois? Tell me it ain't so. See, and I just get so, I'm honestly done. I don't know if, you can hear it in my voice or not, but I'm honestly done because it's like nobody wants to follow the laws. The laws are meaningless in this state because nobody follows them, and the state code, it talks about how you can't use taxpayer infrastructure, taxpayer time, taxpayer resources to go out and campaign. Okay, but yet we had elected officials, and I will remember this clear as day. We had elected officials, or we had government officials get out there on microphones at a choir concert in front of everybody, try to advocate for the Unit 5 tax hike that was a couple of years ago. Okay, we have districts all across McLean County posting on their websites, okay, their taxpayer websites that we pay for. They're posting the sales tax referendum and asking voters to approve the sales tax referendum. This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I'm just so sick of the laws just being blatantly ignored. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to be right back. I got to pull up Krystle Able, the organization she's a part of. There's something interesting here because in 2022, 2023, and if you pull up their tax file or their tax returns, they filed. Okay. This is the Alliance for Retired Americans. Okay. If you pull up their tax returns, you're going to find pretty quickly in 2023 and 2022, they generated a very small, puny amount of revenue, very small. And then their expenditures were insane. Okay. So, net income was negative $65,000, over negative $65,000 in 2023. And yeah, I don't know about you, but if your expenses are like, what are we talking about here? How expensive can it be for retired Americans? I mean, I don't even know exactly what this group does. It's one of these nonprofits, Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans, about us. Okay, I don't know. This is totally fake. When I read this, I just alarm bells go off. Let me share this with you. I looked up the organization. Well, because I'm all about receipts here. Okay, this is her organization. It's the Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans. You go down, net income, their expenditures exceeded their revenue. Okay. So that means that they had revenue $65,000. Their expenditures $131,000. So that negative $65,000. So there you have it. I want to share this now. This is the organization, and I don't know about you, but it kind of sounds fake to me. The mission of the Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans is to ensure social and economic justice. What the hell does that mean? And full civil rights for citizens. Okay, so totally fake to me. Why? There's already a government agency that ensures civil rights for all citizens. Okay. It's called it's called the Human Health Services. Okay. This is a government agency. If you have a civil rights violation, what you can do is file a complaint with the HHS, and then they'll go after it. Okay. And they'll make sure that your civil rights are protected. Dignity, personal fulfillment, family security as senior citizens. The Alliance endeavors to give, I don't know who wrote this website, older and retired, I don't know, endeavors. I feel like that's not even like the word that should go there. Maybe strives to give other older and retired persons the opportunity to strive. Oh, see, they couldn't use it twice. To create a society that incorporates goals and rights during their retirement, allowing them to pursue new and expanded activities in their unions, civic organizations, and communities. I don't know a whole lot of nothing, if I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. Oh, Medicaid, Medicare, I don't know. It seems fake to me. Clearly, I don't know what kind of good they're doing with no income. Okay, with no profitability at all. So we're going to be right back talking a little bit about that. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Chris is up this morning texting me. You guys can text me at 309-451-9299. Corruption in Illinois? Tell me it ain't so. Yeah, it shouldn't shock us that people violate laws and that the laws really don't mean anything because it's Illinois. Look at Michael Madigan, right? So yeah, that's what we talked about in the first segment of the 6 o'clock hour. Cody Hendricks, Jenna Kearns, did they violate city code? Pretty clear to me that candidates for elected office for the city of Bloomington, whether that's mayor or city council, they cannot hold themselves out to be candidates of or nominated or endorsed by political candidates. Pretty clear. So I want to talk about this now. This is Krystle Able. This is her Facebook page. It says, quote, I spent the afternoon in Jacksonville, Illinois, talking to 150 plus rural residents about Medicaid cuts with Jacksonville. Indivisible, which must be like some sort of organization, SEIU, Healthcare, and Jennifer Todd, who is a nurse who plans to run against Representative Mary Miller. Standing room and hallway was packed too. Yeah, of course. I'd imagine that this was probably a part of Governor J.B. Pritzker's tour that he's doing of the state, where he's talking about federal cuts. She goes on in her Facebook post. She says, rural residents care about Medicaid. They care about SNAP, Social Security, Medicare, education, and more. And one thing is abundantly clear: these rural residents want to tax the rich. Well, no. I'm going to be honest with you. Rural residents understand, and I don't know who they filled these rooms up with. Governor J.B. Pritzker and his team of people, he was with Nikki Budzinski. They're really good at finding left-wing activists and filling rooms, okay? Why? How do they do it? Hey, here's a McDonald's gift card, $20. If you stay here for about a couple hours, you mind doing that for me? Don't believe me, that's actually happened. I've talked to people who have gone to Democrat events, and the only reason why they're there is because they got a gift card. Okay. Anyway, so Democrats, the truth doesn't matter to them. Okay, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he talks about, how we're going to lose $11 billion in federal funding. The state of Illinois, good is what I say, good, because guess what? He won't tell you that prior to him taking office, our budget was $30 billion. Okay, it shouldn't be ballooned to a point now. Fast forward to 2025. It's $55 billion. What's going on? What are we spending all $20 billion extra dollars on since you've been governor? It's insanity, and they don't understand basic economics. Medicaid also is not getting cut for people who absolutely need it. SNAP isn't going to get cut for people who absolutely need it. Look, I'm sorry, but illegal aliens and people who are able to work but decide not to because they're lazy bums, they're not entitled to free health care at our expense. Okay. I hate to burst your bubble, but pop. Okay. They will not be receiving benefits anymore. And the Trump administration is going to make sure that people, I know of people who take their SNAP cards and then they sell them, okay, for cash because they don't need them. Okay. So, yeah, they're also looking into work requirements. They might be added to receive Medicaid. Now, they're not going to be full-time work requirements, okay? But hey, if you want Medicaid and you're able-bodied and you're not collecting disability, you should be working part-time, okay? So this is really interesting. That last line there, she says in her social media post, it's abundantly clear rural residents want to tax the rich. That's not not true. Rich people, and by rich people, I'm talking like your small landlords, upper middle class, okay? The people who provide you, your boss, okay? They're the people who provide you the job, okay? They're smart people a lot of the time. Sometimes they're dumb, and then you just don't work for them, and then they wind up, broke because their company goes under, okay? See, this is the way the free market works. But these rich people she's talking about are typically like your friends, your neighbors, maybe your boss, okay? Somebody who makes a little bit more than you at the office, okay? Rich people don't hang around states or cities that get scammed by Democrats, okay? Like I said, with the small landlords, there's constant regulation and mandates on these small landlords, right down to the way they accept payment. Okay, they're being forced to accept things like Venmo and Zelle, and they can't charge a small fee for processing their payment through a payment portal. Okay, which takes a hard cost, okay, because they're not processing that payment. They're hiring a credit card company or find a banker, right, to process that card. Okay, so they need a small fee attached to processing. Okay, but they can't charge that anymore, the landlord. So the rent's going up. Okay, because they're going to just tack it on to the rent. That's why rent keeps going up and up and up, because of the mandates. Or they're going to force landlords to put an emergency radio in their units. Insanity to me. I just don't get it. If you want an emergency radio, go buy one yourself. Okay, or I don't know, everybody has a cell phone. It's kind of stupid, right? You can download the Cities 92.9 app and listen there. You don't need, one of these emergency radios to get emergency radio anymore. We live in 2025, okay? Anyway, so these small landlords, they're being ousted. Okay. And this is why, unemployment is higher in Illinois than any of our neighboring states. It's because the rich people you're talking about, which might be middle class or upper middle class, people who provide jobs, okay, they're leaving the state. Okay. And you can thank insane Democrats for those policies that caused those people to leave the state and throw us into all kinds of poverty, unemployment. It gets so much worse when you mandate and regulate the rich. Okay. So I want to talk about Krystle Able. She says that AOC is the Democratic Party future, or is the future of the Democrat Party. That's hilarious. I want to talk about her organization, though. It's called Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans. We pulled up the tax filing here, available if you guys want to go check it out, BLN News. 2 employers are listed. Now, there's a whole host of people who are not getting paid, but there's only 2 people listed in 2023 as paid employees, okay? Her being one of them. Now, the former executive director of this organization, Illinois Alliance for Retired People, so obviously he's not the director anymore. He resigned and Able took over. Okay, so that means she's managed 0 employees. Okay, so when she goes out and she touts, oh, I'm the executive director of this organization, it's called the Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans. Okay, well, what exactly does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. It means in 2022 and 2023, this organization that she's so proudly the executive director of, they spent more in both years than they generated in revenue. So what does that mean? Okay, and I get it. People are going to say, oh, it's a nonprofit. You know, that's pretty typical with nonprofits. Really, their expenditures were over $130,000. Their revenue was $65,000. Okay. I don't know about you. And to be honest with you, it kind of sounds fake to me. I'd love to find out if people actually benefit from this organization. If you do, text me. I'd love to know. But here's what it says on their website. The mission of Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans is to ensure social and economic justice and full civil rights for citizens so that they can enjoy dignity, personal fulfillment, and family security as senior citizens. So civil rights violation, like a social and economic justice, these are all kinds of things that, I don't know, the DOJ, the HHS, these government agencies are fully capable of doing. You know, say there's a civil rights violation against a senior citizen, you lodge a complaint with the HHS. They look into it. Social and economic justice. I don't really know what all of that means. There's Social Security, which is provided by the federal government. Okay, there's Medicaid provided by the federal government. I feel like the bases are already covered here, and this is duplicative. Does anybody else feel that way? This organization is duplicative. So it's called the Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans. Anyway, I bring this up because, you know, if you're, net income negative $65,000, is that fiscally responsible? Is that a good? Is that a good attribute, or like, is that something you want to be touting, that you are the executive director of a failing organization? Simply failing. What good can you do for retired Americans through this organization if you're in the hole by the tune of $65,000? Probably not a whole lot of good. I'm willing to bet. All right, you guys, I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Economic and social justice. I don't even know what that means. And like a lot of things with government, if you were these nonprofit organizations, if you were to just get in front of them and say, what does that mean? What are you talking about? They'll just completely unfold, because it absolutely means nothing. These are fronts. She's obviously collecting a salary through this organization. I don't know what kind, because the last tax filing, you've got the former director. I'd imagine the salary is pretty much, the same for Krystle Able as the current executive director. He was the former executive director. Jesus Palafox, he was the former executive director. He was getting $68,000. Krystle Able was the only other paid employee for at the tune of $4,000. So they're generating revenue, but they're spending way more than they're generating. And I get that that's like typical maybe for a nonprofit. I don't know really, but I just don't see what kind of good they can be doing when they're in the hole, right? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. All right. We're gonna be back. Go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We're gonna be back in just a few minutes. Ba, ba, ba. Good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So I do appreciate you being here this morning. What did we talk about? What did you miss so far? Well, Cody Hendricks, Jenna Kearns, did you violate city law? Huh. Or city code? Did they, like I said, Chapter 2, Section 13E, candidates for elected office of City of Bloomington, mayor, city council members, they cannot hold themselves out to be candidates of or nominated or endorsed by political parties. Here is Cody Hendricks, mailer, okay, for mayor. Cody is the candidate endorsed by the McLean County Democrats. Yikes. Okay. And then on the back of the mailer, it says Cody Hendricks is proudly endorsed by Democrats. Oh boy, I don't know. I don't think it gets much more blatant than that, but I don't think anything is ever going to come of it. And like I said, there's a line in the code that says, hey, if you're going to violate law that where there's no or code where there's no specific penalty mentioned, the violation is a result of $50 to $500 per violation. And if you continue to violate, it's a separate offense each day. The violation continues, counts as a separate offense. So I don't think anything's really going to happen, though. Why do you say that, Kat? Well, I've lived here long enough. I know the game, right? There is no accountability ever. For example, the electioneering, right? Clearly, like using the Unit 5 concert as a place to campaign on behalf of the tax hike a couple of years ago. I mean, I'll never forget that. That was quite crazy. You had school board candidates tabling buttons all over this table. And then it continues to happen, at the McLean County government level, allegedly, where you had, according to emails by former employee within the state's attorney's office. He says, hey, she's going around illegally soliciting donations for a PAC established to eliminate the county auditor. That's campaigning with government time resources. And you had somebody in the state's an attorney accusing her of that, somebody who knows the law, in an email. So yeah, I don't expect anything to happen here because we just live in lawlessness. So Tim Walz didn't do Kamala Harris any favors during the election. Why? Because he just blatantly makes things up without evidence. Okay, he just makes it whatever he wants up. He says that he was endorsed. I think it was by the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce or something like that. He didn't receive any endorsement. He says that he was a combat veteran. He didn't serve in combat. He says that he went to the Tiananmen Square. He was there during the Tiananmen Square massacre or something crazy. He wasn't there. He just continues to lie. He says that his wife, Gwen Walz, she got IVF. Not true. He just makes things up without providing any evidence. So, and then he also, without any evidence, portrayed Trump as an evil villain, and that didn't do very well with the people, especially considering he got shot in the ear and then popped right back up, pumped his fist in the air. It's hard to paint him as the bad guy, okay, because he's the one getting shot at. He never learned from that, okay? And he's doubling down and he's continuing to make Trump out to be the bad guy. And he says that Trump is going to wind up segregating students in school if he gets rid of the DOE. Let me stop this, okay? Civil rights complaints within the education sphere, okay? Whether that's so DEI, right? There's a lot of complaints, even launched by people on the right or people who believe that DEI is discriminatory, which it is. Where you're treating somebody different on the basis of their skin color. Okay. For example, I know in Illinois, there's been cases where as high school does field trips for, as Democrats call them, POCs, because they're racist, persons of color. They do field trips for those students, but not white students, okay? Or they'll give scholarships to POCs instead of the white students, or they don't allow them to apply for certain scholarships. Okay, so that's discriminatory. You can launch complaints, and those complaints can go to the HHS, the Human Health Services, or if it's criminal in some sort of way, whether that's a hate crime or somebody's going out and hurting people on the basis of their skin. The FBI, the DOJ could possibly get involved. Okay, there's no need really for the DOE when it comes to civil rights complaints because we already have a government agency that already does that. So it's duplicative, the DOE. So we're gonna get to Tim Walz comments here. Here on the other side, you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Go ahead and smash that like button. We are going to get to Tim Walz. Like I said, the DOE is completely duplicative. Anything the DOE does, even like food programs. Okay, so your kid, which I don't even understand why we have so much duplication. Like that's the best way I can describe it. We have food programs like SNAP, and other food assistant programs, where you can get money to go buy groceries. Why would you need that? Because the DOE is currently feeding your kid breakfast, dinner, and lunch. Okay. I don't even know why you would need food assistance because at that rate, all you have to do is feed yourself. And how expensive can that truly be a day? Okay. Max a day, and it depends on what you're buying, obviously, but I'd say like $20. That's max. Okay, is what you need to sustain yourself, um, with food, and people are getting way more in SNAP. So let me actually look this up. Okay. SNAP, you're getting. Yeah, I don't really believe this stuff. I know people who've gotten SNAP for like thousands of dollars a month, $1,500 a month, or something like that. But anyway, so the USDA, Food and Nutrition Service. Okay, now this is I believe, yeah, the USDA. This is the Department of Agriculture. Okay, they're getting the SNAP benefits out there and all of the local food or all of the assistance programs, the Department of Agriculture. Okay. So when they argue for the DOE, a lot of the leftists, they'll bring up, well, they investigate civil rights complaints um, or civil rights violations, or what about the food programs? Sorry, I yawned. What about the food programs? Look, the Department of Agriculture and the Human Health Services, they cover all of that. So this is very duplicative, okay? And the state, they come up with their curriculums. The local school boards come up with the curriculum. So there's really no need for the DOE. There really isn't. If you can make an argument for it, try. Um, so we're going to talk about Tim Walz, play this clip. But according to the Daily Caller, President Donald Trump signed an executive order directing the Secretary of Education, Linda McMohan, to start shutting down the agency. Okay, so this is fulfilling a campaign promise. He promised, okay, to shut down the Department of Ed. This isn't anything new. 7 days after, um, the department had announced. So he did say that they were going to shut this down. And shortly before they said that they were going to shut this down, they, as in they, I mean the Department of Ed, announced 50%. They've reduced their workforce, okay, through voluntary buyouts and layoffs. Okay, they reduced it. So they were making this move way before, and people screaming about it now is just kind of really funny. Walz told MSNBC Rachel Maddow that Trump fulfilled a long-time dream of conservatives during a rant that lasted about 2 minutes, during which he invoked his son's autism spectrum and how the DOE's and is needed for IEPs and things like that, which is not true. The state, the local school district can make decisions about those types of curriculums and programs. Okay. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Let's listen to Tim Walz here. Here we go.
And he's surrounded by people who know nothing about education. And they want to make this about bureaucracy and cutting. This is about children. This is about broadband access in their schools. This is about the research you were talking about, pedagogy, things that we learn. And then it's about the Civil Rights Department at the Department of Education that makes sure that we don't have a situation where a Ruby Bridges is escorted to school with police. And so we're back in an area where we can segregate. And he knows that curriculums and those decisions are made on a local basis, but they muddy the waters. And he's surrounding by
Oh, Tampon Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, fact check, false. Like I said, Department of Ag, they do the meal programs and things like that, so they can take over the meal programs like breakfast, dinner, and lunch, which I don't understand. If your kid is getting like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you don't have to feed your kid at all, I don't even know why you'd want to be a parent. But number one, number two, why in the hell are we giving people SNAP benefits for families of four or whatever, and their kids are getting fed while they're at school? So there's really no need to be giving somebody a family of four SNAP benefits, right? Or family of three or whatever SNAP benefits if we're also doing meal programs through the schools. Okay. And DOE does that kind of stuff. They also do like these civil rights complaints. But like I said, the HHS can investigate those. And he's saying that we're going to experience like some sort of segregation now that the DOE is dismantled. Like, give me a break, man. So Tim Walz, he is repeating this lie, right, that the schools are going to be segregated. And, I wonder if he, thinks if he repeats this lie over and over, it's going to make it true. Similar to what he did on the campaign trail, right? He's just a liar, and he's just going to repeat something without any evidence until until it's true in his head. So President Donald Trump, like I said, he signed an executive order directing the Secretary of Education to start shutting down this agency. Prior to shutting it down, they announced that they had reduced their workforce by 50% through voluntary layoff or buyouts, and they did some layoffs. Okay. Walz told MSNBC Rachel Maddow that this is a longtime dream of conservatives, and he ranted here for about a couple of minutes. I only paid 30 seconds. But he ranted and he invoked his son's autism spectrum. I want to unpack this because the DOE, they're not really the ones who do the IEPs and things like that. A lot of that is decided at a local level or state level. And it's duplicative. There's no reason to have the Department of Education. There really isn't. All right, I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Okay. The DOE is not resulting in increased scores anywhere. Okay. Just look at Illinois. DOE doesn't do Illinois any favors. Okay. And the reason why Illinois sucks so bad is because the Illinois School Board of Education, the IEA, they're the ones who can kind of control everything. The Illinois Education Association, this is the teachers union. That's why education sucks so bad. It's because they are a behemoth, the IEA, and they direct, for example, the IEA actually directed districts across the state, your two local districts, District 87, Unit 5, about parental notification. Parental notification being if the kid comes out as transgender, you as a teacher or as a school administrator, you're obligated to obtain written consent from that child prior to disclosing that child's gender status to the parent. Okay, so withholding the gender status of the child from the parents. Okay, they were directed by the IEA to do that. And maybe that has something to do with the piss poor education and scores. Illinois is particularly bad. Here's what Walz claimed. Well, we know what's coming, but it's still a day that I dreaded, or we know it was coming, the department closing because of the layoffs, the buyouts, and things the week prior to the announcement. Okay. I dreaded it as a teacher, as a parent, certainly as a governor now, and it's sad for me about this. What's sad for me about this is that Donald Trump doesn't know anything about education. This is a longtime dream of the far right to crush the public education system. and to take money and transfer it to private schools. I don't see where that's too bad. That don't exist in a lot of rural areas. Yeah, they don't exist because of the regulation probably you have in your state. They're trying to regulate it here in the state of Illinois. But that's just false. Homeschooling, private education, it exists. It exists in rural areas. Here's what people in rural areas do: they just educate in their houses, okay, and they do what's called pod teaching, okay. It doesn't exist. No, it doesn't exist as in you don't like it, okay, because you don't know what kind of education is going on and you can't control it. And that's why you say it doesn't exist, okay, the education in these rural areas. Um, but then he goes on, he says, and then you continue to undermine some of the missions of the Department of Education, making sure everyone gets educated regardless of race, religion, and abilities. My son, who's dependent on an IEP or IDA or whatever that is, it's an individual education plan, okay, to make sure that they're treated equally and get the best education possible. Well, that's the problem. Is like, I hate when people say like these kids are being treated equally. No, they're getting a special education. Okay, why? Because they have special needs. Okay, IEPs, it doesn't mean that you get an equal education. It means you get a special education. And who better than the private school or a homeschool to provide you that special education? It's more tailored to your specific needs. And this is just study after study shows it. Okay. Mass education, of course, you have to kind of sacrifice individuality because you're trying to teach the masses. Okay. You're trying to teach a group of, 16 kids. The best way, kids with special needs could probably, and I'm sure, I don't know if Tim Walz has hired a tutor or anything, but um, you know, the autism, kids on the spectrum, right? They definitely need specialized education. And one thing that the public school is not any good at is specialized education. Why? Because at its core, it's designed for mass education. Okay, it can't be specialized if it's mass. Okay, so um, they do a very piss poor job at this, IEPs and things like that. Why? Because it's the nature of public education, because they're in the business of mass education. Um, and then he goes on, he says, individual education plans to make sure they're treated equally and get the best possible education they can. That's the hallmark of America. I think America's great contribution to the world is public education system. No, I think that it's actually destroyed the planet. The Secretary of Ed, the Secretary of the Department, closing the department does not mean cutting off funds from those who are dependent on them. We will continue to support K through 12 schools and students with special needs, college borrowers, and others who rely on essential programs. Yeah, so the closing of the department doesn't mean that the funding's going to stop, right? It just means that there's not an entire agency um, allocating those funds. Okay. You're still going to get your, special needs. You're still going to get funding for education. You just don't need the oversight. Okay. The bureaucracy of it all. So Walz ignores this because he's a pathological liar. Of course, and he's going to ignore what the Secretary of Education said all about this. So we are going to get to that clip, or a clip that President Donald Trump, of President Donald Trump, where he has a message for Tim Walz. So I'm going to share that with you here next on Conservative Cat. Go ahead, smash that like button and share this out with your friends. Welcome to the Red Kingdom, 7:05 a.m. It's a Tuesday. Go ahead and find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Folks, tomorrow morning, we are going to have an explosive show about the sales tax referendum. Okay, Dean Fletcher joining me to talk all things sales tax referendum. What is it? We're also going to talk about this email coordination between Barry Riley's PAC, which is the Yes for Schools. Okay, Barry Riley, the former District 87 superintendent who makes $200,000 a year in pensions, although he only managed 9 schools, and the Peoria superintendent is managing 25 schools and getting paid currently half that. Makes no sense, right? No equity there. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about the coordination between that PAC and various government employees. Unit 5 Superintendent Kristen Able. You've got the Regional Office of Education, Erica Hunt. Okay, there's a lot of email coordination going on to try to get this thing passed between your government officials and your government employees, people you're paying the salaries of, and this PAC. So we're going to talk about it tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. You won't want to miss it. Before I took the break, I was telling you about Walz and the Department of Education. Like I said, the Department of Education, please make me an argument as to what they do. I really can't find one that justifies an entire agency or entire bureaucracy. Okay, so what? Meal plans, the USDA does that. Civil rights, HHS does that. Okay, now you've got Tim Walz on MSNBC with Rachel Maddow, and he's talking about how Trump fulfilled a long-time dream of conservatives during a rant. Okay, he ranted for about a couple of minutes, and he invoked his son with autism. Like I said, point anywhere, scores are abysmal across the nation, okay, when it comes to reading at grade level, doing math at grade level. We've established that, okay? Here in the state of Illinois, it's specifically very abysmal. Why? Because a lot of that's all determined by the curriculum. The IEA here, the Illinois Education Association, this is the teachers union, they are very, very corrupt, and they direct the school districts on what they should be doing inside their schools. Okay, so the IEA is a political arm that, strong arms these districts into doing what they want. For example, I know the IEA local districts here, they were instructed by the IEA teachers were instructed to not inform parents if their children had a different gender identity. So, for example, if little Timmy's coming to school and changing in the bathroom into a dress and is going by the name Tammy, okay, you're not allowed to inform the parent of that as a teacher or as a school administrator. Okay, that's how it currently exists in the Illinois school systems. Because the IEA says you can't inform the parents. It's called parental notification. They don't want you, unless you obtain written consent from the 5-year-old who says he's a girl, then you can go tell the parents that he's acting like a girl or that he wants to be a girl, right? But this is the corruption, okay? The IEA has instructed teachers and administrators and districts to do this, and they're doing it. And we wonder why the kids are all messed up and they can't read at grade level or do math at grade level. We wonder why. It's probably because we've completely cut off the parents entirely from their education. And we've also cut off the parents entirely when it comes to the parents providing food. District 87 is talking about healthcare and putting clinics in the school. At this point, just get them cots, okay? Let them sleep there, okay? That's what the school is in the business of. They want to parent your children, okay? They don't want to teach your children. They want to parent your children and turn your kids against you. That's what this is really all about. And you can see it. They're getting their food, their breakfast, dinner, and lunch from the school district. They're going to be getting healthcare from the school district. They're telling the teachers not to communicate with you about the kids' psychological issues. Okay, so that's where we're at with the Department of Education. With the state of Illinois, that's why the scores are so bad, okay, because of the indoctrination and the turning parents against turning the kids against the parents, and then the parents not being involved in the kids' education, okay. They are ostracized from the kid, okay, from the student. And that is the model of education we have here in the state of Illinois, and that is why the kids are doing so poorly, because you've turned the child and the student against their parent, and the parent is no longer involved in the education of that student, and you've taken over every aspect of that child's life as a public school anyway. So the Department of Education, point anywhere, find me somewhere where the Department of Education has increased the scores of students. You won't be able to do it. Why? Because it's the state thing. We have such sucky education here in the state because of the IEA, the Illinois Education Association, the teachers union, okay? And because of the Illinois School Board of Education, the curriculums and things that they decide, comprehensive sex education, that's something that the state of Illinois decides. No wonder the kids can't read and write. They're too busy learning about comprehensive sex ed. Okay, so that's the state of Illinois. The Department of Ed has no say over that, and they haven't been able to increase our scores because guess what? The Department of Education doesn't determine curriculum and what's done inside the schools. Okay, so here's a quote from Tim Walz. He says, well, we know this was coming, and it did. Like, we all knew it was coming. It was 7 days prior to the announcements of the closure of the department that they were, like, laying off everybody, the workforce, by 50%. I think it was cut. So I was like, oh, yeah, they're cutting it. And not to mention it was a campaign promise of Donald Trump. But he says, we knew it was coming, but it's still a day I dreaded. I dreaded it as a teacher, as a parent, and certainly now as a governor. And it's a sad part for me about the sad part about this for me is Donald Trump doesn't know anything about education, really. Walz, scoreboard, okay? That's all I've got to say, scoreboard. Donald Trump is quite literally the president of the United States, and you're an old football coach, I mean, who's hated by probably everybody in his state. Yeah, I don't know. Scoreboard, man, scoreboard. He's also billionaire. So there's that. I think he knows a thing or two about education. And yeah, I think all we need to do is look at the scoreboard. He says, this has been a long time dream of the far right to crush public education system. Yes, yes, 100%. I'd love to see the public education system crushed. Take that money and transfer it to public schools that don't exist in a lot of rural areas. Okay, wrong. Private schools do. It's called pods. Private schools do exist in rural areas. It's called pods, homeschooling pods. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Okay. In rural areas, they usually just teach the kids themselves. Okay. The parents teach the kids themselves. Then he goes on and then he says, and this is according to Daily Caller, and then to undermine some of the mission of the Department of Ed. See, and notice how he chooses his words pretty carefully. This is the mission of the Department of Ed. They don't really execute the mission. Okay, the Department of Ed, making sure everybody gets an education regardless of race, religion, or abilities. I've talked to several parents about their students' IEP, and they go through all kinds of hoops, and it's very hard to get a specialized education for students in the mass education world. Why? Because it's designed to mass educate. It's very hard to specialize education for children who are on the spectrum in a public education atmosphere. It's hard to do it. Why? Because it's designed for mass education. They've never been really successful in implementing IEPs. I'm going to be honest with you. The people who are successful in individual education plans, I don't know, the homeschool or the private school that has about, 40, 50 students, the pods, that's usually effective way of getting a specialized education is it actually being specialized and not a mass education. But he continues, he says, students like my son, so he invokes his autistic son, who depend on individual education plans to make sure that they are treated equally. That's the whole problem, okay, with special education and individual education plans is that you treat them equally. It's specialized, okay? It's special education. They're special needs, so it should be specialized. They shouldn't be getting equal treatment. And the DOE has tried so hard to force this equality when it comes to IEPs and education plans, and it's just not. That's not the crux of mass education. Doesn't allow for special education. So he goes on. He says that's the hallmark of America. This is Tim Walz. I think America's great contribution to the world is the public education system. I'd say no. The Secretary of Ed. Now, this is what's so rich about all of this. The Secretary of Ed said, look, just because the department's closing doesn't mean that we're cutting off funds to continue to help K through 12 students, special needs students, college students, borrowers, the Pell Grants, right? You're still going to get federal funding for all of that. Everybody's going to get federal funds. You just don't need the bureaucracy there to manage it, okay? Walz ignores that. Obviously, the Secretary of Education coming out and saying, we're not cutting off funds. We're going to continue to support students with special needs, college student borrowers, and others who rely on essential programs. Take a listen to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a message for Tim Walz. Here we go.
Tim Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz. I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser. Yeah, I mean, he's a loser. He lost an election. He played a part. Usually a vice president doesn't play a part, they say. I think Tim played a part. I think he was so bad that he hurt her. But she hurt herself, and Joe hurt them both. They didn't have a great group, but I would probably put him at the bottom of the group.
He's a loser. He's correct. Total loser. Like I've been saying all this morning. Scoreboard. Okay. The sooner he realizes this, the better off he's going to be. Hey, I'm a loser and Donald Trump's a winner. And I'm always going to be looking up at Donald Trump. And this is why, anytime he opens his mouth, none of it really makes sense, Tim Walz. I'd be curious if he's running for 2028. I sure hope he does. That would be so cool for me. So much content. And I'm I am praying to the content gods, right? Or I am praying that he becomes a 2028 presidential candidate. That would be so good for me. Anyway, so I want to take a break. We're going to talk about MSNBC. They're saying registering to vote is racist. Yes, it's racist to register to vote. And this is just something the left does. They want to be like Australia, where they force you to vote and they treat it like a civic duty, and then they penalize you for not voting, and then you're automatically registered, and there's no such thing as voter registration. And a little bit later, we're going to get to this woman. She actually chases down this guy who's wearing a MAGA hat. I'm so sick of the unhinged left. Like, what? But karma happened and gravity happened. And this woman fell flat on her face when she was chasing this guy with a MAGA hat. Beautiful video. I'm going to share that with you here. And Gavin Newsom continuing to lie. He says that he's never used the term Latinx. Okay. In this podcast, he was on with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, who you can catch at night, 11 p.m., by the way, here on Cities 92.9. After me, it's Glenn Beck. And then we don't have Dan Bongino anymore. I'm sad. The Vince show is the new time slot. I would definitely check him out. He is so good and smart. And he's been featured on Tucker Carlson. He had JD Vance on the show a couple of days ago. Vince is really good. So Gavin Newsom, he was on with Charlie Kirk, he's doing a new podcast, and he invited Charlie Kirk onto his podcast, Gavin Newsom, and he said that he's never said the term Latinx. That is a lie. CNN actually called him out on that lie because he did use the term Latinx. Latinx is so dumb. Okay, it's like trying to be gender neutral, and Latina, Latino. And instead of saying Latina, Latino, you say Latinx, which is just so dumb. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Yeah, there was no DOE when I grew up. Districts competed heavily to get students. My dad moved us for that reason. Look how Berlin and I came out. Yeah, so that's one thing that removing the DOE will do. Is I think that you're gonna get, but like the DOE doesn't even really do all that much. I mean, other than kind of probably shift our focus. To, hey, how's this state doing? How's this district doing? And like, then it becomes competitive, like you're saying. And Yeah, like I said, the DOE it has been around very long, since the 70s. So getting rid of it, I don't think is going to be that detrimental. I don't think it's going to be detrimental at all. I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. What's new, Kat? Whoa, 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 whoa. Earlier in the show, we were talking about Cody Hendricks. We were talking about violating Bloomington City Code, ... question mark. Huh. Very odd that he's sending out mailers that say that he's endorsed by Democrats, especially considering Chapter 2, Section 13E of the city code. It says candidates for elected office of City of Bloomington, whether that be mayor or city council. We know Cody Hendricks is running for mayor, may not run or hold themselves out to be candidates of or nominated or endorsed by political parties. Here's a campaign mailer. You guys are welcome to see that here on the YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. This is interesting. Here's Sheila Motney reading the code, last night's council meeting. Here we go.
You know, on the city's website, when you click on government, there's a tab that says codes and ordinances, and then there's another tab that says view online code. And I just wanted to draw attention to the municipal code, chapter 2, administration, section 13, titled how composed, and E, just one sentence from E in the city code. Candidates for elected offices of the City of Bloomington, mayor and council member, may not run or hold themselves out to be candidates of or nominated or endorsed by political parties.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Savage. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And you know, at this point, I just feel like there's so much violation going on of the law. We're not holding people accountable under the law, and it's just really disappointing. Really quick, it says, according to BLN News, corruption is back in 2025. Nonpartisan elections were established by law in 1914 to combat corruption. Okay, so nonpartisan elections, they were established in 1914. Okay, so 1914, the Bloomington Election Commission was created for the same reason, to combat corruption. 2025, corruption is back thanks to Cody Hendricks and Jenna Kearns. Like I said, Jenna Kearns, is it as blatant as Cody Hendricks? I don't think it's as blatant, but to be clear, the ordinance does say, let me pull it up here. It does say, you know, you can't present yourself or you can't hold yourself out to be a Democrat. And according to Jenna Kearns' mailers, she says, I'm a candidate who supports Democrats. So you're making yourself out to be a Democrat. So in a way, also possibly a violation as well of this code. Look, City of Bloomington, you got to do something to stop them. You got to come out. You got to not ignore the lawbreakers, okay? Look what happened with Michael Madigan and the corruption for decades. We ignored what he was doing. And now Bloomington is fostering the next Michael Madigans. We've got the chair, the McLean County chair, Liz Johnson, now facing allegations of illegally soliciting funds, donations for a PAC established to eliminate the county auditor on government time. We had somebody email. We know that he was a former employee of the state's attorney's office, and he accused her of that. He actually had obtained a refund from Lizzie Johnson, was texting back and forth and said, hey, this was illegally solicited. Because of that, I'm asking for a refund. It was issued, you know, according to financial records. So we got to start holding people accountable. A little bit later, I do want to get to, I am going to play this. This is going to be great. At the NAACP candidate forum, Mayor Chris Coos, the incumbent, said that it's a rumor that e-scooters are banned. Hilarious, because he made those comments despite the Town of Normal's website outlining that they are not to be ridden anywhere. They are not permitted anywhere. Okay, so if you go to the Town of Normal website, it says there's like this little table, and it outlines permitted areas for recreation and transportation devices. Okay, so modes of transportation: e-bikes are allowed on the Constitution Trail. They're not allowed on sidewalks. They're also allowed on the streets. Now, e-scooters, however, they're not allowed on the Constitution Trail. They're not allowed on sidewalks. They're not on the streets. So they're not permitted in any areas, which means they're banned. Okay. So him saying that it's a rumor, pushed by the e-scooter industry, somebody in the e-scooter industry, that's just false. According to the Town of Normal's own website, they're banned. Okay. Or, well, they use a different language, not permitted. Okay. Banned, not permitted. Same thing. We are gonna get to Tax and Accounting Plus Rick Johnson. It's Tax Tip Tuesday. I'm so glad that he's joining me here this morning. Good morning, Rick Johnson. How are you?
I'm just fine, Kat. Thank you very much. Of course, I know that you're aware that I'm a new grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
And, very excited about that. He was a little boy, 9 pounds, 3.8 ounces. 20 inches long, and his name is Asher, and I couldn't be more proud.
Everybody, please throw into the comment section on YouTube. Throw your congratulations to Rick Johnson. He is a pop, and Asher. Well, let's welcome Asher to the world. I'm sure he's enjoying it. Little Asher, he is adorable, folks. I got a picture, and I was like, oh my heart. He's so sweet. So obviously you were gone last week. So we've got a lot to catch up on when it comes to taxes. Guys, Rick Johnson, he lives, breathes, eats taxes. Okay, so he is the expert here, and we've got a lot of topics to cover this morning. Rick, let's start with the entertainment expense deduction.
Okay. Well, this is just kind of a reminder to everybody that there, for the most part, there is no entertainment expense deduction. That was the law provides that no deduction is allowed with respect to any activity that is considered or associated with entertainment, amusement, or recreation. Also, membership dues with respect to any club organized for business, pleasure, or recreation, or any social purposes. So basically, the entertainment deduction is gone, and that's include even if you would rent a facility that is in connection with some sort of entertainment is not allowed. The law also disallows a deduction for expenses associated with providing qualified transportation fringe benefits to your employees. The one exception to that is if it's in place for the safety of the employee, then it would still be allowed. Otherwise, no reimbursements for transportation, no entertainment, no going out for, taking people out for meals or things like this. Not meals for entertainment purposes. Meals are still allowed. Okay. Now, also keep in mind that a lot of people, when they would deduct these expenses, had to take them on a Schedule A in other expenses. That is, also as a reminder, no longer allowed either. So as an employee, but the good news is you can still take some of these expenses off as a self-employed individual, which I'll cover here in just a second. I want to remind everybody again about 2025 is the last year for these changes that were put back in 2018. So after 2025 is over, Congress is going to have to do something, come out with some changes, extensions, whatever. Like I said, we know how good our Congress is about getting on top of things and getting it done early and not waiting till the last day that it's all going to expire. So, but yes, so keep that in mind. Entertainment expense deduction is basically just not allowed.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get to our next one here, which is the office and home expenses. So we're going to probably talk about that being deductible, right?
Right. Well, again, not as an employee. The old rule was that if it was for the convenience of the employer, then you could take those deductions, but that's not allowed. As far as the law changes went back in 18, that goes along with the entertainment and things of that nature. But if you're a self-employed individual, and you will be allowed to take an office and home deduction if it's used by the taxpayer for the administration or management activities of the taxpayer's business, if there is no other fixed location to where they perform those activities. Okay, so basically they're saying they're not going to let you have two places doing the same thing. Now, the home office must still be used regularly and exclusively, and by that means that the office has to be marked off in some fashion, separated, and you cannot use it for anything personal during this time. So what a lot of people do, and it's a little trick of the IRS, and during the audit, when people will put that they use their computer in their office 75% of the time, 80% of the time for business purposes, and the other little bit of time they're just playing on it. Okay, well, that violates the exclusivity of the room. So they would take your entire office and home expense away. So you want to take that computer, if it's like a laptop, leaving it when you're in there 100%. And if you want to play on it, basically you got to take it out and go in the kitchen or something and use it so that you can maintain your office and home expenses. But it's still a good deduction, a very well deduction. There's also a simplified method now that's been in place for a few years that you can use. So encourage you to talk to your professional about that and get the help in the details and maybe get yourself an extra deduction.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like it could be tricky if you're trying to stay within those parameters. So just make sure that you listen to the parameters, listen to the expert. He knows what the definition is. So the meal per diem allowance, what's that all about?
Well, a lot of times, people when they go away on trips for business and or travel, or maybe they take a prospective client out for a meal, things of that nature. They don't track everything as much as they should as far as the cost of the meals and things of this nature. But now, if let's say you're traveling and you go to another city, another state, the IRS does allow that you to take a per diem. In other words, just a set amount that you can take for the day instead of tracking the expenses, the actual expenses. So in 24, that standard rate is $64. And in 25 here now it's going to be 73. So you can get $73 a day in 25 that you can deduct for meal expenses for yourself. Okay. Transportation workers, they get a little bit more. They get this in 24, it was $74, and it's $85 in 25. Now, transportation workers are basically described as individuals that work for like an airline, a barge, a bus, a ship, a train, or truck drivers. That's the most that we deal with, over-the-road truck drivers. And so they use this as a good way for them to just keep track. They keep track of it overnight, and they just multiply that by the per diem, and they get that expense. Now, individuals, there's a 50% limitation. In other words, whatever you come up with your meals, you can only deduct 50% of them. But for transportation workers, since that's their main deal, they get 80% they can deduct off. So, but it adds up. People just don't realize how quickly it adds up. And it's kind of a pain, keeping track of your mileage. And we're going to go into that in more detail in another Tax Tip Tuesday. But it's a very, very good deduction. One of the biggest deductions you're going to get on your return, most generally, is the use of your vehicle. So.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And then, I did not know that you could deduct your per diem meals. So that's awesome. Rick Johnson, anything else you've got for our listeners?
No, I just we are located at 501 North Clinton. If anybody's interested in coming by and asking a few questions, our phone number is 309-827-4010, and our website is taxaccountingplus.com.
And Rick, before you go, I do want you to plug your other services as well, because you guys just don't do taxes, right?
No, we're a full service provider, one-stop shop. Basically, we do complete payroll services, bookkeeping, accounting, creating corporations, LLCs, things like this for individuals. We pretty much cover it all.
Awesome. Well, Rick Johnson, you have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for joining me on Tax Tip Tuesday. We'll be back at it next week. All right. Bye-bye, Rick. Folks, we're going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're back. We're talking a little bit about Chris Coos, the incumbent mayor. He was at the Bloomington Normal NAACP candidate forum, and he talked a little bit about e-scooters. He was asked, about e-scooters, and he had said essentially it's a rumor that they're banned. Not true, according to the Town of Normal website. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the website as well because I think it's hilarious that they've got, the website saying one thing, but then the incumbent mayor saying something completely different. So we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are going to come back and also talk a little bit about I wanted to get to this story, the MAGA hat, chasing MAGA hats, but also this unhinged woman chasing a man in a MAGA hat, and then she finds out the hard way that that's probably not a good idea, and she fell flat on her face. So karma is not a friend. E-scooters are banned, according to the website, right? The Town of Normal Parks and Recreation website. You guys can check it out. I'll share it right now. I'll share with you the website. There's a table that talks about permitted areas for recreation and transportation devices. Okay, so e-scooters are not permitted anywhere. Whereas bicycles, they're permitted everywhere. E-bikes are not permitted on sidewalks. One wheels, they're not permitted anywhere, and then e-skateboards are permitted on the Constitutional Trail, sidewalks except in Uptown Normal, and they're not allowed on streets. But e-bikes, they're allowed on streets in the Constitutional Trail. E-scooters, not permitted on the Constitutional Trail, sidewalks, or streets. Take a listen to Chris Coos here at the NAACP candidate forum, however.
Why was a contract for a local business to provide e-scooters shut down without public input? This could have brought money to the town as well as additional transportation options to citizens.
To start that conversation, we're facing challenges in the community with e-scooters, e-bikes, and how to regulate. That's a technology that's moving very quickly that we need to address. And most of the conflict happens on Constitution Trail. And that's what we're working with Friends of the Constitution Trail, the Lake Run Club, and Plain County Wheelers to come up with solutions to address that. But first off, and I think the most important thing in that is we have not banned e-scooters in Illinois. We have had no legislation on e-scooters in Illinois. That is a rumor, and that is a rumor being spread by a person in the e-scooter business. So I'm pretty upset that people think that we have banned e-scooters in our community. We have not.
Okay, well, who's right then? Because is it the mayor of Normal or is it the Town of Normal website? Because if we were to go to the Town of Normal website, it's banned. It says it right here, folks. E-scooters, they are not permitted in any area, anywhere in the Town of Normal. Okay, I also don't understand his whole thing, like, oh, it's a technology and it's a changing technology or whatever, and it's developing very quickly. E-scooters, man, my guy, they've been around since I've been, like, before I was born. So you can't mess like this whole technology thing is a ridiculous what do you call it? It's just it's a stupid point. Okay, he's making a stupid point here, and really what it is, it's not a rumor that e-scooters are banned. According to the Town of Normal website, I don't know who to believe at this point, the mayor or the Town of Normal website that says that they're not permitted to be ridden anywhere. All right. I do want to get to few things this morning. I got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to talk about this unhinged leftist. I think that this will be a great story to end on. She chases somebody with a MAGA hat on, and she winds up falling flat on her face. Karma is terrible. She's not a friend. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. I do want to share with you this video. I'm going to let you guys watch it, and I'll just kind of describe it for our low radio friends when we come back a little bit. But this is the unhinged leftist here. Okay. She's a New York City woman. Of course, this happened in New York City. Does it shock you that this happened in New York City? Probably not. So she goes and chases this guy with this MAGA hat on, and she starts screaming at him. Here, I'll just play this for you. Here we go.
That's why he won. People like you. That's why he won. That is why he won, because of people like you need to stop it. Let him dead.
Bro, just like, bro, chill, bro.
You're okay with that? He's a racist. I'm so okay.
How can I be racist, bro?
If you fucking voted for Trump, you're racist. He's a racist.
How can I be racist?
No, he's not. Leave him alone.
Doesn't watch the news.
You realize he was a Democrat.
I'm highly educated.
Oh, are you? I just why are you wearing that hat? Only I don't know how long the Democrats have been running New York since who knows how long. But then Trump comes in and just fixes it.
Well, this is my style. I hope you enjoy the hat.
Oh, she took a tackle. She just
Oh boy, that's hilarious. So yes, this New York City woman, she fell flat on her face after harassing and chasing a young man who solely she did this because he was wearing a MAGA hat. Karma was served in this instance. And it's kind of hilarious. She fell flat on her face. Hilarious. In the background, you can kind of hear this guy saying, well, this is why your side lost. It's because you're claiming that this kid who, what the Democrats would say, is a person of color. Okay. And, you know, this really explains that this is exactly why they lost. Are not interested in uniting the country or hearing out the other side, and they resort to insults and even violence. Okay, in this instance, she violently went after him and chased him and tried to grab his hat. She has no clue who he is, who he stands for, and why he voted for Donald Trump, and the fact that she calls him uneducated, despite being among the most manipulated and naive voter base in America, somebody who would have voted for Kamala Harris, speaks volumes as to how delusional these people actually are. Clearly, to call him uneducated and you were a Kamala Harris supporter, come on now. She's a white woman and she appears to be, and he appears, the guy in the MAGA hat appears to be what the left calls the POC, person of color. And she says that he's the racist one, which is really interesting because he's brown. And by their logic, that brown people can't be racist, right? The left does not realize how racist they truly are. She mocked him solely for his wardrobe choice, and I can't help but feel if the roles were reversed. Imagine he was a Trump supporter and he was white and he was chasing down a POC, a person of color, solely because he was wearing a Kamala Harris hat. Could you imagine the years that we would have to listen to that story? The left is not interested in proving how insane the people on their side are, though, of course. So we will never hear this story except here on Conservative Cat. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But I also want you to subscribe today. Subscribe to the channel. We're done with that. I'm done with that video. It's kind of hilarious, though. I mean, come on. She fell flat on her face. Karma. Hello, Mark. Good morning. I appreciate you being here this morning. How's everything going? I think you moved to Tennessee. So you moved. You're no longer here in Illinois, I believe. If you're still listening, let me know where you moved if you want to throw it in the chat. But I hope it's going well. It's got to be better than Illinois. H-E double hockey stick Illinois, Illinois, wherever you had moved to. Good morning, congratulations. Yes, Asher, he's a sweet little baby boy. Very cute picture. Lisa, appreciate you being here this morning. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington woman, normal, a white woman. She appears to be chasing down this, what the left would call a person of color. Okay, so he is like a brown type color skin. And he's wearing a MAGA hat. Okay. Now, if the roles were reversed here, I can't help but feel like the media would be on this for years and years and years. Okay. If this was a white Trump supporter chasing down a person of color solely because he was wearing a Kamala Harris hat, we would hear about the story for years. But the left and the media, they're not interested in proving how insane the left is. So you won't hear about this story at all. So this New York City woman, and we shouldn't be shocked by this, she's a New York City woman. She fell flat on her face. She was chasing and harassing this young man. They were on a subway. And in the background, you can kind of hear another man kind of claim, or you can kind of hear him claiming, "This is why your side lost, lady." Like, because you're accusing him of racism. She accused him of racism, said he was uneducated, which is really hilarious because I think that she doesn't quite understand that she's a part of the most manipulated, most naive voter base in America. Somebody who voted for Kamala Harris has got to be naive and manipulated, right? She says that he's uneducated, so that just shows you how delusional she is. And she has no interest in hearing the other side out, right? You see a MAGA hat, maybe you would want to have a conversation with them. Maybe you don't agree with Trump supporters and Donald Trump and some of the policies. Why don't you use that as a time to talk about and hear the other side out and engage in some healthy debate? But this side is not interested in that. They resort to insults and violence. So she chases him and then she's running and then she falls flat on her face. I couldn't imagine a white Trump supporter doing this and chasing down a person of color because you would hear about it for years and years and years. And most people will probably never know that this actually happened in New York. I played the clip for you on YouTube. Most people will probably never realize that this happened unless you tune into Conservative Cat, but it's so unhinged. The video ended with her laying flat on her face. Okay, and we can only hope that that hit knocked her back into some sort of reality. It's doubtful, but who knows? Maybe the hit and maybe the smackdown onto the pavement was a dose of reality and brought her back. And maybe she'll vote for Donald Trump or vote for J.D. Vance in 2028. I don't know. Maybe Donald Trump will run again. Who knows? It'll be interesting. All right. We got to go. I appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Earlier in the show, we talked a lot of local news. We talked about Cody Hendricks, Jenna Kearns, this violating of the city code. This is a big one, folks. Smoking gun here was the mailer where, Cody Hendricks puts it on there that he's endorsed by Democrats in the city ordinance. Read by Sheila Mutney in last night's Bloomington City Council meeting says that candidates who hold themselves to be candidates of, nominated, or endorsed by political parties, they can't do that. Okay, so they may not run or hold themselves out to be it's prohibited, and this was prohibited in 1914 to avoid corruption. And Cody Hendricks, obviously the mailers are pretty damning, but also Jenna Kearns' mailers, says things like, "I'm for Ward 1 and I support Democrats and labor unions." So is she also violating it? Sheila Mutney brought it up at the city council meeting. We talked about that. We talked about Krystle Able's organization that she's the executive director of. She touts that a lot of the time, but really, what does that mean? This organization doesn't seem really real to me, in that they generate a very small amount of revenue and then they spend way more than that small amount of revenue generated in both the years of 2022 and 2023. So when she says she's the executive director, I think it's the Illinois Alliance for Retired People, I don't know. When she says that, it really doesn't mean much, because if you're not making any money, what good are you doing in the community? You know what I mean? If you can't do any good if you're in the negative. Okay, so I don't know how you continue to operate. All right, you guys have a blessed day. Bye. Love you so much. Tomorrow morning, you won't want to miss it because we are doing a sales tax referendum episode. There is a 1% sales tax question on your ballot on April 1st. The area school districts, they want to collect a 1% sales tax. And that's going to be pretty expensive for you, considering that, I think it's like over 80% of other municipalities in the state of Illinois are paying less than we do in sales tax in McLean County. And not to mention, we pay the highest property taxes in the nation. Not to mention, McLean County pays higher than the statewide average in property taxes. And really what this is all about is the pensions. Come on, there's an unfunded pension liability, and all these teachers and administrators, they want to make sure that their pensions are there to stay. So they need to secure the tax money for it. So we're going to do that all tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. Bye-bye. Love you.